Hi everyone, and welcome to my 1,000 subscriber Q&A special. I just want to thank everyone who submitted a question for me to answer, as well as just a general thank you to everyone who subscribes. I seem to have picked up a number of subscribers since I hit 1,000 pretty quickly, so that's pretty exciting. But anyways, I will get straight onto the questions. First, just a warning, you'll probably hear my dog walking around at some point. I'm trying to do this in as few takes as possible, so I can't control her for as long as this is going to take, I don't think. But anyway, on to the first question. The first question is from Buried on Mars, who asks, could you commit to playing video games on only one console for an entire year? If so, which console would you choose? I'm doing this year for the Retro Fandango One Console Challenge, and I chose the Xbox One. Could I commit is one question. I mean, I suppose if all my other consoles were to catch on fire or something, I could play just one for a year. Would I choose to do that? No, I think this challenge is a little bit nutty. Respect to everyone who's taking it on, but yeah, it's not something that I think I would ever choose to do myself. However, hypothetically, if I had only one console to choose from, it would be a toss-up between the PlayStation 2 or the Xbox 360. I think those are the two consoles that have the largest library of good games on them. If I had to pick just one, I'd probably go with the PlayStation 2, just because those games have been a bit more neglected than the Xbox 360 games, so I could probably spend a year just playing those. Alright, next question comes from Andy Lynn, whose question sort of takes the last one a bit further and asks, if you had to have only one console and one game for that machine, what would they be? That's a pretty tough one, just one game, so I mean, I guess that's the important part rather than the console. But if I could only play one game, it would be XCOM on the Xbox 360. I think that's a game that I could basically play forever. The only reason I don't play it more is because there's so many other games to play. But yeah, I think XCOM would keep me busy and keep me entertained for the longest out of any single one game that I could play. The next question comes from Duke Nukem 3DO, who has two questions. The first one is, what's your thoughts on the Dead or Alive Xtreme 3 controversy? I think the controversy was sort of manufactured by whoever who made those comments about why the game wasn't coming to North America. When the game was first announced a few months ago, there didn't seem to be any plan to release it outside of Japan, and no one really made a fuss out of it. At the same time, I've never seen too much of a stink kicked up over those games in the past. I mean, I think if you have a game that spends more focus on boob jiggle physics than gameplay, then, you know, you're probably going to get criticism of the game. If you don't care, then just don't listen to it. I don't know why possibility for criticism would stop you from releasing a game. So I think what probably happened is it just wasn't releasing here because it didn't sell very well, the second game. So yeah, I think it's sort of manufactured controversy, blaming the mean feminists for not releasing the game when it was just really more of a business decision than anything. The second question is, do you watch anime? And no, I don't watch any anime at all. Next question comes from Retro Island Gaming. Are there any games you're saving to review until you have more subscribers? I'm not really saving anything for more subscribers. There are games that I want to review in the future, but just haven't sort of, more out of laziness than anything, honestly. I'm a fan of RPGs, and I would really like to review and replay some of my favorite RPGs, but it seems like a lot of work. I mean, first of all, playing through them, you know, they could be 50, 60, 70 hours long. Recording all that footage and sorting through all that footage just sounds like a nightmare. But I would like to do that in the future, but I'm not saving them for more subscribers. I'm just saving them for more initiative, I guess. The next question comes from Stefan Johansson, who asks, what's your favorite Mega Drive game? The Mega Drive wasn't a system I had as a kid, so most of the games I've played on it have been more recent, or the ones that sort of came out in arcades and things. There's not really a game I'm super attached to. If I had to pick one, I'd guess I'd go with Streets of Rage 2, since I think that's a really fun game, both solo and co-op. And there's a second question here, which is, are you only into consoles, or do you have any old PCs for gaming too? I don't have any old PCs for gaming, but I am a huge fan of PC gaming. When I was younger, I was really big into adventure games specifically, like the LucasArts stuff and the Sierra stuff. Gabriel Knight, King's Quest, Quest for Glory, Leisure Suit Larry. Those were all games that I played a lot as a kid. In terms of playing them now, though, I sort of rely on sites like Good Old Games to make them playable on current machines. I don't have any old machines that allow me to run things from a disc. Next question comes from Gruss Newton. Which do you prefer, classic Sonic or modern Sonic? Honestly, I didn't ever like classic Sonic. I found the gameplay really sort of jarring. You'd be speeding along, having fun, and then boom, you'd bang into a wall and all momentum would stop. And I don't know, the game just never really appealed to me. So because I didn't like classic Sonic, I've never played any modern Sonic. Next question comes from Oliver from the future. Are you into JRPGs? If so, what are some of your favorites? Yeah, definitely into JRPGs, especially the sort of PS1, PS2 era JRPGs. I've played a lot of those. Favorites from that time, the Final Fantasy series. Sorry, my pets are fighting in the background. Star Ocean Second Story is one of my favorite ones, although I wasn't too much of a fan of the later entries in the series. Although I'm excited for the new Star Ocean that was announced not too long ago. I hope that goes well. Shadow Hearts is one of my favorite JRPGs on the PlayStation 2. Legend of Dragoon, Parasite Eve, even though that's sort of a hybrid. I find that recently most JRPGs that come out go right onto handhelds, and I don't really play on any handhelds, so I feel like I've been out of the JRPG loop for quite a while. The last one that I played that I really liked was Lost Odyssey, which was on the 360. Right. Sorry, bad animals. Next question is from Chris Miller. What games frustrate you? For me, it's Super R-Type. A lot of games frustrate me, to be honest. The things that frustrate me most in games are when they seem to be unfairly challenging, or when they require you to memorize levels in order to be successful. It wasn't a thing that bothered me so much when I was young, but now that, time is tighter and there are more games to play, I find that if I have to just play a game over and over and over to memorize everything that happens, that'll generally just turn me off, and I will usually set the game aside. Next, the Retrolectors ask, if you had unlimited time to binge on gaming, what would be your top 5 games to binge on? Cribbing from an earlier question, the first one would be XCOM. Again, I could play XCOM basically forever. I would also say Final Fantasy VII. It's been a while since I did a replay of that, and there's so much to do in that game. I always had a goal to master the Knights of the Round materia, and I never quite did it. I always got burnt out before it happened. But if I had unlimited time, maybe I could finally master that materia. Thinking of newer games, I'd probably say Witcher 3. I've spent about 100 hours in that game already, but I still have the Hearts of Stone expansion to finish, and there's all sorts of things to explore and do in that game. And then for my last two, I'd pick things that are not huge games, but just games that I don't really get bored of. So Super Mario Brothers 3, I could, maybe master that game, learn to play it with my eyes closed or my hands tied behind my back or something. And Gun Knack, which is just, I think, my favorite shooter and one I probably wouldn't get bored of. Alright, the next question comes from Harmony and More. What is your favorite video game ever and why? My favorite video game ever is Planescape Torment, which is a CRPG by Black Isle Studios. Why is it my favorite? Because it has amazing writing, both in the story and the characters. It just creates this world and these characters that just come alive. Just every little thing in the game, like you can find a little trinket that really doesn't have much to do with the story at all, and just the description of the trinket is so well written and so well thought out that it just triggers your imagination, and you think of the places this has been, the things it's seen, the people who have owned it. It's just super, super immersive, and it lets you play whatever class you want. You can switch between classes if you want. Your companions are really, really interesting characters, and it's fun to get to know them. And I also like that, unlike most JRPGs, which are usually some big save the world thing, Planescape Torment is about a man saving himself, which I think is a nice departure from the more epic storylines. If anyone hasn't played Planescape Torment, you should play it. You can get it for cheap. Okay, Driftwood Gaming asks, if you had to pick just one, what is your favorite RPG of all time? Well, I just named an RPG as my favorite game of all time, but since I don't want to give the same answer twice, I'll say Shadow Hearts Covenant, which is the second game in the Shadow Hearts series. Shadow Hearts, especially the second one, is really good because it's kind of goofy and it doesn't take itself too seriously. It also has this really interesting combat system where, though it is turn-based, it's also more active. There's this thing called the Judgment Wheel, and it's got sections, and in order to successfully execute an attack, you have to hit all those sections as the wheel spins around. So it makes it a little more of an active kind of combat. And it's just a really fun game with a good story and good characters. And I think that's my favorite RPG aside from Torment. Nick Ash Gill asks, my question to you is, how did gaming become your passion? In other words, what do you like most about gaming in general? Gaming, it's sort of hard to tell when it became my passion because it's something that's just sort of been in my life for as long as I can remember. What particularly I like about gaming is how interactive it is. I mean, I'm big on movies and reading as well, but, where you can watch or you can read, in a game you actually get to interact and make decisions and really sort of either drive a story forward or just drive the gameplay forward, and it's all sort of up to you. So it not only tells you a story, but it also lets you it gives you skill challenges, and it lets you make decisions, and gaming's just a lot of fun, and the gaming community is also a pretty cool place to be. There's always someone around who is up for talking about their favorite games or listening to me talking about my favorite games, so that's what I like about gaming the most. All this talking making me thirsty. Alright, next question comes from LifeSpiller79. My question is, what other plans do you have for the channel? I don't have any concrete plans right now. I was thinking I want to do more sort of vlog type videos. I mean, I really like doing the reviews. They take a lot of effort. They're a lot of work, but I would just like to be able to just sort of talk more, especially about recent things, whether it's gaming news or controversies or, just things happening around gaming right now. It would be nice to just be able to get my thoughts on everything that's going on out there more often. I think I would like to do that a little bit more next year. Toku Joe asks, pizza, burgers, or hot dogs? Burgers. Definitely burgers with fries or poutine. And the burger has to have extra pickles, no ketchup. Colton Ray asks, what consoles did you have growing up, and what were some of your favorite games from when you were younger? Growing up, the NES was my main console, which I had for a number of years. The games I had were sort of, a lot of the general ones, like Super Mario. Felix the Cat is another big one that I really liked. And one game, this is pretty nerdy, but one game that I spent a lot of time in my bedroom playing by myself is Monopoly. The Monopoly game on NES. I played that a ton, and I got really good at Monopoly playing against the computer, and that's kind of sad. I also like puzzle games. Tetris, Clax was one of my favorite games, and that I could actually play with other people, so that was fun. After the NES, I didn't get another console until the PlayStation 1. Next question, if I can find it. Fiery Rain asks, what's your favorite movie or favorite genre of movie? That's a hard one to answer because genre sort of depends on what mood I'm in. I mean, I like horror movies, I like sci-fi movies and comedies. Some of my favorite movies are LA Confidential and Starship Troopers and Moulin Rouge. The Rebel of Gaming asks, which game did you want to play when it first came out but you couldn't until now? That's a hard one. I'm having trouble thinking of anything. There's nothing that really sticks out on something like I saw advertised or something and really wanted to play it but never got to. Yeah, by the time I was really following gaming news, I was in a position to get the games that I wanted. So, I'm sorry, that's not a very good answer to your question, but I can't think of anything right now. Holy Mindless asks, your history with gaming and what triggered the move from just a player to critic. My history with gaming, that could be a very long answer. We could be here all night. As I mentioned, my first console was the NES, but that wasn't my start with gaming. I always had a computer in my house from the time I was very young, so I played a lot of, my dad was a teacher, and my mom worked at Xerox, who made the first computers, so I played a lot of educational games, like Battle Chess and Cross Country Canada, the trucking game. What else was there? Like Q*bert and Frogger and things like that. So those I started playing really early. Then I got the NES. Then I went mostly back into PC gaming, like the adventure games I mentioned before. After that, I got a PlayStation 1, which I specifically got for Final Fantasy VII after seeing the advertisements for that. And after that, I sort of got most of the consoles. I didn't have any Sega growing up. I played it at friends' house occasionally. But yeah, I sort of went right from NES to PlayStation 1 and then basically had most of the consoles from there on out. What triggered my move from just a player to a critic? The cause of that was actually World of Warcraft, which I played for about 8 or 9 years. 6 years ago, I started a blog, which is also called Cannot Be Tamed, and it was originally a blog about World of Warcraft. I played a Resto Druid and a Hunter, and I felt like people I played with could be better at the game and that I could tell them how. So I made a blog and started writing guides on classes and boss fights. One of my particular things was telling DPS how to use their damage reduction cooldowns. Also things on using combat logs and things to analyze and increase your DPS and change raid strategies. So that was a big part of it. And then a few years after that, I started sort of dabbling more in other games. And eventually I sort of lost interest in Warcraft altogether and started talking about modern and indie and retro games on my blog. Another thing that got me into it more was social media. With Twitter and things, it's a lot easier to get your opinion out there and talk more with people who were like-minded and had the same interests as me. So that's where the move to sort of game criticism came in. Eduardo Umana asks, did you beat Guardian Legend without a walkthrough on your own, or did you need help? Because it's a hard game. No, I did not beat it totally on my own. I did need to resort to the power of the internet to tell me how to open some of the corridor doors. Some of those things were very unintuitive, like having to fire your weapon at them, or leave and come back, or just stand in the room doing nothing for a certain amount of time. I probably wouldn't have beaten the game had I not looked up some sort of help. I think I also looked up a map just so I knew where each symbol was to make it a little bit easier to find my way around. Alright, I feel like this video is going kind of long. I got more questions than I was anticipating and don't want this to be an hour long. So I'm going to cut it off there and come back in a few days with part 2 where I'll answer all the rest of the questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.